You're listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have UFC 262, Oliveira versus Chandler, preview, predictions, and analysis, along with UFC Fight Night recaps of Prochazka versus Reyes, along with Rodriguez versus Waterson. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, everybody, how's everyone doing tonight? I hope you guys are ready for this preview and predictions. When it comes to the fight night recaps, I'm not going to spend too much time on them. I'm going to go over a few fights, discuss the main events, and try to get most of that done. I might actually only talk about Prochazka versus Reyes here because although I did get to watch Rodriguez versus Waterson, I didn't get to fully study the fight and fully take in everything that happened during the contest. I do know that Marina looked a lot stronger in the clinch. Her knees to the body and knees to the head and her elbows up against the cage and the control she was able to muster up in the clinch was doing very good for her and doing well for her in the fight and in terms of stealing rounds. Her striking, her kickboxing, her range management, everything looked very good. But when it comes to breaking down the fight, I'd like to go back and watch that and, talk about it from a better standpoint than the point that I'm actually at. I can talk about a couple fights from that card, but I think it's better to just save that for the next episode. I know I just said it in the intro, but when I think about it, I don't want to give you a half-assed analysis of the fights because that's not what this podcast was built off of. So I definitely want to give you a little bit more detailed breakdown. And we're going to start with the main event from 2 weeks ago, Yuri Prochazka versus Dominic Reyes. Prochazka winning via a second-round spinning elbow knockout. Phenomenal fight. I mean, back and forth for the first two rounds. The thing that I said was very prevalent in this fight is I think Prochazka was probably going to get hurt, and there was a point where he got stumbled. It wasn't anything too, crazy. It looked like he got knocked out with an up kick by Dominic Reyes at one point, but he was able to, get his wits about him and scramble a little bit on the ground and was able to stay in the fight. And, one thing I think people underestimate is Prochazka's ground game and his ability to scramble on the ground or wind up in a good position or even just, be defensively aware on the ground in what could be potentially bad positions if you're not, seasoned in that area of the grappling game. It's the fight against King Mo Lawal and the fight against CB Dalloway. There were some really, really good grappling exchanges. I mean, just back and forth. Really good at taking the back. Prochazka's really good at finding ways to get his hooks in. Get his hooks in and take the back and work for submissions. He's very, very solid in that area. We just don't see it too much because he's so good at pressuring opponents and fighting in this style where he reminds me of a light heavyweight version of Dominic Cruz. That's something I've said on this podcast before, and it's something I'm going to stand by. His constant switching from orthodox to southpaw, moving laterally and changing angles and coming in with weird combinations. The fight with Dominic Reyes was a lot of that same mentality. Right when the fight started, he got in Dominic Reyes' face. Now, he was more defensively aware in this fight than he was in his debut in the UFC. He didn't go as crazy in terms of, just not being defensively aware. In the Volkan Oezdemir fight, he was more reckless at, moving around and just kind of waning into the fire and going after. In the fight, he was more reckless at, moving around and just kind of waning into the fire and going after it to get a knockout. And in the fight against Dominic Reyes, he was more aware of the left hand. He was more aware of the changing of direction with his footwork and his angle, so he didn't walk in to the left hand of Reyes. I'm actually going to pull up some highlights, and we can walk you through some of the exchanges in this fight and what I'm talking about. So let's see if somebody's got some highlights up, because it's been a little while since I've watched that fight. Here we go, I think. Is this highlights?
Lots of guys are off their game right now.
Here, let's get the volume off on this, and then we will continue. Okay, yeah, here we go. So it is highlights of this fight. So, obviously Orthodox versus Southpaw, it was just the pressure of Jiri. He was moving forward. He wasn't really backing away too much. He was pushing forward. He would dart in with the right hand and then use that to switch stance into Southpaw. And then he could use that check right hook to direct you into the left hand from the Southpaw stance. And then he would stand in the Southpaw stance for a little bit. He'd back up, and as Dominic Reyes would attack from Southpaw, which is the stance that Reyes primarily fights out of, he would step back into Orthodox and just continue to move forward. There was a combination he threw, which was a right uppercut, right hook into a straight left as he switched stances. So he started off in Southpaw, or he started in Orthodox, stepped forward into Southpaw with a right uppercut, went with a right hook to direct him into the straight left hand, and then as Reyes came forward again, he was back in the Orthodox stance. So he moves from stance to stance in the combination. Throwing the rear hand is going to now direct you into the rear hand of the stance switch. So what was previously rear hand is now lead hand. That check hook, which could have been a power hook from the power side, is moving it into the lead side. So it's a check hook to direct you into the previous weak side, which is now where the power is going to come from in terms of Southpaw versus Orthodox. We talk about that a lot on this podcast. Good front kicks from Jiri. That was something I thought would be a big factor against Reyes. He was good at kind of standing in a bladed stance, or not bladed stance, but more of a side stance when Reyes would come forward. And then that would be a good opportunity for him to back off on a linear angle and then come through with a check hook if Reyes pushed forward and was just very reckless. Reyes looked good too, though. Like, you can't discount Reyes. There was a point where he tried to go with a front kick, kind of play Jiri and beat Jiri at his own game, and he got countered right down the middle with a pop shot right hand. So as he threw that front kick, he stepped in and landed that right hand. It hurt Reyes, pushed him back to the cage, and Jiri just didn't have any respect for his power. I mean, yes, he did obviously respect his game and was defensively aware of the straight left hand and the right hook and the left kicks that Reyes was going to throw, because those are primarily his best weapons. But he just kind of moved forward and just came at him from a really, I don't want to say disrespectful point, because he wasn't disrespectful. He just didn't respect the power that Dominic Reyes possessed. He tried to go for a throw, and Reyes ended up on top, but Jiri was able to bridge, shrimp his hips out, turn the corner, and get back up to give his back up, and then get back up to his feet. And then it was right back to just getting in his face and landing combinations up against the cage. He would push Reyes up against the cage. And, against a guy like Weidman, against some other people, up against the cage is where Dominic Reyes can get that brief angle off to his right to land the straight left down the center like he did against Weidman. But with Jiri being kind of in a square stance, which means your power is equal from both sides, and switching stances as he moves forward with hooks and kicks, and, landing a right hand from Orthodox, stepping forward with a right hook, landing a straight left, pushing you back with the jab, blocking your kicks, slipping away from your jab, coming back with a right hook, left hook, a right uppercut, and the thing with that Reyes was very good at was he would kind of walk back against the cage on a linear pattern, and then as he thought Prochazka would be open, he would briefly stop and switch into southpaw and boom, try to come at him from an angle off to his side. So he would try to come at him from a parallel angle off to the side and land that straight left hand against Prochazka. But it really wasn't working. Prochazka was able to pull back, he was able to slip, or he was able to just slip and pivot away from it. Here's a point close to the end of the first round where Reyes goes to throw a jab. Prochazka slips inside of it. Actually, wait, hold on. That's the wrong. He threw a straight left hand, and Prochazka slipped to the outside. Reyes rolled underneath to come through with a overhand right, kind of like a switch stance combo. And Prohaska just slipped and rolled away from it as well. So he's just so aware of everything because he's looking you right in the eye. He's standing right in front of you. And then it's just right hand, left hook, right hook. Really good with the switch stance where he would straight right, boom, switch into the right hook. Keep him at a distance with the jab and measure, and then come through with the uppercuts. As Reyes would throw the right hook or the left hook, sometimes he would go into that side stance, karate style stance defensively to kind of have the shots graze off the shoulder, and then he's right back in your face trying to land those 3, 4, 5 punch combinations and just keeping his hands low and leaning forward to make you think that he's closer than he actually is while his feet are back farther away. So when you throw, he just moves his head. He's already far enough back. He can come back in with a front kick, a push kick to the body, and then go right back on the punch combinations up against the cage and using his upper trunk movement to slip away from the left hands of Reyes when Prohaska was at that angle that he wanted. It's a little brief angle. It's kind of like the angle McGregor wants to get up against the cage when he's moving forward. When he has you up against the cage, he wants to get that brief angle. So when you go to move away from it, you're going to run into the cage and you run into the straight left. Reyes was kind of at that angle, but moving backwards, and then he could throw his own straight left and try to catch him. But Prohaska was just aware of it. He would slip it, pull away from it, roll, counter, and then come back with the 1, 2, 3, 4 punch combos with the stance switches. Good knees, good catching of kicks. There was one good thing that Reyes did in the fight. It was a back fist when Prohaska would try to close the range. He would land a little brief back fist to try to offset Prohaska and get him to stand still for a second, and then he can come back in with his combinations. But, just the stance switches and the square stance of Prohaska. He kind of reminded me when Tony Ferguson fought RDA. There was a point where he pushed RDA up against the cage and just walked forward. And as he walked forward, he was in a square stance, but he would switch his feet as he walked forward. So every punch he threw was a power shot, whether it was from orthodox or southpaw, right versus left. So that was really good from Prohaska. And then obviously we'll talk about the finishing sequence because I don't want to spend too much more time breaking down this fight. But there's a point where Reyes just kept getting smacked. All the combinations he tried to throw just weren't landing. He did hurt Prohaska, but Prohaska was very good at hiding it and also very good at countering either a front kick or the left body kick of Reyes with a straight down the middle, because when you throw a kick, your head and your upper body is going to be open so they can counter down the center. And Prohaska is just so aware. He's so good at slipping away from shots. The back fist from Dominic Reyes from the right side as Prohaska would try to rush in was very good. It was good at offsetting Prohaska's movement, but then he would just come right back. He didn't give Dominic Reyes any respect, and he was just constantly moving, jumping front kicks to the body, straights to the body, the teeps, landing an elbow with the right hand from the right side and using that elbow to switch into southpaw. He's just very tricky at setting up his stance switches, and then it makes the opponent not be able to see where the power is coming from. There was a point after he landed that elbow in the front kick where Reyes landed a left elbow of his own, and then he was able to get off to a brief angle and then land that straight left on that side angle off to Prohaska's lead side because he was in southpaw as well, I believe. He hurt him. Prohaska went to shoot a takedown, and Reyes jumped guillotine, and it was very, very close. And usually the hair of Prohaska would make it harder to get the guillotine or harder to get out because of the new, hairstyle. He had that long top bun and everything was kind of at the top, so it would be harder to sneak your head out when your hair is just bunched up like that. But he was able to get out, control Reyes a little bit, move into half guard and land some elbows, but Reyes was able to move back to full guard, land some good shots of his own, and landed an up kick on Prohaska off at an angle. Again, we're going to talk about Tony Ferguson like he did on The Ultimate Fighter when he got that up kick KO. Instead of landing an up kick coming up the middle, he landed an up kick from the side, and it was kind of like an upward axe kick, and it caught him on the chin, dropped Prohaska, but Prohaska was able to get his wits about him, stay on top in the half guard, land some good punches to Dominic Reyes. And then eventually, towards the end of the round, just pushing him again, pushing him back to the cage, trying to keep him up lands that right elbow, which leads him to step forward into southpaw. Reyes tries to come back on the counter, and boom, gets hit with a left elbow and just knocked out cold. Dropped. He just falls forward and boom, snaps his neck on the mat. A brutal knockout. That's 2 brutal knockouts in a row now for Dominic Reyes. And, man, it was awful. Boom, lands that elbow. He just falls forward, all of his weight on his neck, snaps his neck like that. And Prochazka has to get a title shot. You have to give Yuri a title shot. There's nothing else for him to do. He needs to fight for the title. And I would say you got to do, well, obviously we're going to get Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira. I fully expect Blachowicz to beat Glover. So I think that fight is at UFC 263. So after that fight, you have to give Prochazka a title shot. I've heard some people say Prochazka versus Rakic. I would love to see that fight, but I think that fight has to be for the title. And if Blachowicz fights Prochazka, I think Prochazka beats him. I think he finishes Blachowicz. Now, Blachowicz is so good. I picked Blachowicz to defeat Adesanya, and I was one of the very few people that actually picked him to win that fight. So I have respect for Blachowicz. I know how good he is. I know how good his kickboxing is, and his Muay Thai, and his range management, and his grappling, which is really what won him that fight against Adesanya. Everything is good from Blachowicz. He's very patient. He's very wise of everything the opponent can throw. And being able to land such good shots against a seasoned kickboxer who many consider to be the best striker in the UFC in this last stylebender, Israel Adesanya, says a lot for Blachowicz. And, him going up against Prochazka, I just think that the movement, the low hands, I think that Prochazka, if Blachowicz stays patient, there is a possibility he can hurt him and drop him. He does have Polish power, but Prochazka's got that freaking Bushido power where he can land and send you into orbit with one shot. And it's a tough fight, but I do think that if they do end up fighting, I do pick Blachowicz to beat Teixeira. I don't think Glover really has a shot unless he's able to get in a scramble and get his back, which he did do against Thiago Santos. But I think the power is just too much. I think it's an early knockout for Blachowicz against Glover, and then we get Blachowicz versus Prochazka for the light heavyweight championship, and I think Prochazka finishes him. That's just my early thoughts on that fight. I think the movement, I think the constant stance changing, I think the hands low and just constant pressure up against the cage is going to leave Blachowicz open to him getting countered, stepping in. Probably with a step back right hook or left hook, and then into the combinations. And I think Yuri Prochazka is your next light heavyweight champion. I definitely expect him to be the next light heavyweight champion. All right, I'm only going to cover that fight. I know I kind of shot myself in the foot by saying I was going to discuss the last 2 fight cards, but we have a lot to discuss. We have a lot to discuss going into this fight card this weekend, UFC 262, the main event for the vacant light heavyweight championship. You've got Tony Ferguson coming back on a 2-fight losing streak against a man who's on a, I believe, 6-fight win streak in Beneil Dariush, or 6 or 7 fights in a row. That's a great fight for the co-main event. Michael Chandler versus Charlie Olives in the main event. Charles Oliveira for the vacant. Burgos versus Barbosa. Matt Schnell versus Rogerio Bontorin. That's a great fight for the flyweight division. Andrea Lee versus Shevchenko. Ferguson versus Dariush, and Chandler versus Charlie Olives. Fantastic fight card here. We were supposed to get Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz, which would have just sent this card to the next level, but that is moved over to UFC 263. And when you look at UFC 263, that is probably better than 262, which says a lot because this fight card is amazing. But that fight card goes like this. What does the prelims look like? Or what do they look like? So this says it's on the prelims, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be on the main card. You've got Drew Dober versus Brad Riddell in the lightweight division, which is just a fucking banger of a fight. That's really all you can say. They're going to go to war. It's going to be a stand-up war from bell to bell. You've got Damian Maia versus Bilal Muhammad. Great fight. Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz. Hell yeah. You've got Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno too, which was one of the best fights you'll ever see in the UFC and one of the best fights you'll ever see in the flyweight division. Definitely the best fight in flyweight division's history. Co-main event previously was the main event at UFC 256. They're back in it. It ended via a majority draw, I believe. And obviously Figueiredo kept the belt, but phenomenal fight. And we get to see that rematch, which is going to be bananas. They are going to kill each other. I don't know who I'm going to pick in that fight. I'm leaning a little bit towards Moreno because I think he did look a little bit stronger as the fight carried on. And with those nut shots that he took, the low blows, that definitely caused some issues for him in terms of, getting back into the fight and really setting a pace. But once he set a pace, he hurt Figueiredo. Figueiredo wasn't really able to hurt him on the feet. I think Moreno landed the bigger shots, which says a lot because Figueiredo hits so damn hard. I mean, if Figueiredo hits you on the chin full blast, he's going to send your nose and your brain into the bleachers. And then you've got the middleweight title main event, Israel Addis Sanya versus Marvin Vittori 2. Vittori giving Adesanya one of his closest fights previously to the Blachowicz loss and the Kelvin Gastelum fight. I go with Adesanya here all day. I think if Vittori uses the wrestling, he might be able to get some good offense going. But I don't think he deserves this title shot off of a win over Jack Hermansson or off of a win over Kevin Holland. I'm sorry, because he did beat Kevin Holland. You can give him the title shot, but Whitaker should have got this without a doubt. It should have been Robert Whitaker. They did offer it to him, and Whitaker said he wouldn't be ready in time, I believe. So you can't fault the UFC for that. So Vittori would be next in line. But I expect Adesanya to win this fight pretty handily, if I do say so myself. So Adesanya should beat Vittori, but Vittori versus Adesanya, Figueiredo versus Moreno 2 for the flyweight championship, Leon Edwards versus the returning Nate Diaz, Damian Maia versus Bilal Muhammad, which is a great fight. Paul Craig versus Jamal Hill. That's a really good fight to open up the card. And then Brad Riddell versus Drew Dober. Phenomenal fight card for UFC 263. And I cannot wait for it. So, and then after 262, the weekend after that, we've got Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt in the main event, which is absolutely phenomenal. I have 2 interviews on my podcast with Rob Font. Hopefully I can get him on again right before his next fight. And I've got an interview with Tyson Chartier up there. I've got an interview with their striking coach, Jake Manini. I've talked to a lot of guys out of the Boston area, the New England Cartel group. I've talked to a lot of them. Jake Manini's been on the podcast multiple times. Tyson Chartier's been on once. Rob Font on twice. So I'm excited for Font versus Garbrandt, and I can't wait to give you predictions for that fight as well. But without any further ado, let's get into what we came here to do, and that's talk about UFC 262, which takes place this Saturday, May 15th from I believe it's in Dallas, Texas, or Houston, Texas. I think this event is somewhere in Texas. And, Charlie, I was going to say Charlie Olives again. I can't get that out of my head. Once I started saying that, I can't stop. But Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for the vacant lightweight championship. We're finally going to get some direction after the, retirement of the greatest lightweight of all time, undefeated at 29-0, Habib the Eagle Nurmagomedov. We're finally going to get some direction in terms of the 155-pound division. And then the winner of this fight is going to definitely fight the winner of the main event of UFC 264 on July 10th between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, the trilogy fight. So whoever wins that is definitely going to fight the winner of Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler, which main events this weekend's card. Aside from that, like we said, Ferguson versus Dariush in the co-main event at lightweight. Jack Hermansson versus Edmund Shabazian in the middleweight division. Hurricane Shane Burgos versus Edson Jr. Barbosa. Matt Schnell versus Rogerio Bontorin. Andrea Lee versus Antonina Shevchenko. Just phenomenal fights on this card. And we've got to get into it because I don't have too much time, but I want to give you a detailed breakdown of all these fights before this weekend's card. And I want to get it out early because usually I do these predictions on Thursday or Friday, and I want to get it out quick and have more time for more people to listen to it before the pay-per-view takes place this weekend. All right, well, before we wait any longer, let's get into the UFC 262 predictions, and we're going to start off with the prelims in the women's flyweight division. You've got a battle between top 15 ranked contenders trying to crack into that top 10. Number 11, you've got Andrea KGB Lee, who holds a record of 11 victories and 5 defeats, coming into this fight against the number 12 ranked Antonina La Pantera Shevchenko, who comes into this fight with a record of 8 victories and 2 defeats. This is a lot closer. Actually, you know what? I don't want to say close because I don't think this fight's going to be close. I think Antonina Shevchenko is better everywhere in terms of where this fight could take place. I think on the feet, she's a little bit more patient than Andrea Lee. And that doesn't mean that she's not good on the feet. She does have good striking. She's got a very good 1-2 fade off to the left to avoid the power punch or power right or, right hook of the opponent to then land that low kick across the thigh. So she'll go 1-2, lean over, take that slight angle change, and land the low kick. She's very good at that. She's good at landing a low kick, a right low kick into a left hook. Her best punch that she throws is definitely her left hook. She throws it going backwards. She throws it going forward. She goes hook to the jab. She just throws a left hook and gets a brief angle. She'll switch stance into southpaw and land that straight left down the center and get off on an angle. She's very good at that. She's also very good in terms of the scrambling on the ground. This fight is definitely going to go to the ground at some point. I think if somebody gets a takedown, it's going to be either a head and arm throw from Antonina Shevchenko, or it's going to be a clinch position where they're in the tie plum and Andrea Lee is going to get a hold of the head of Antonina, and she's going to use that position to then get her head get their heads, close together, and then kind of bring it down on an angle towards the ground. And then, wherever the head goes, the body follows is something we've talked about on this podcast. She'll drag Antonina down and then use that to get top position. Even if Andrea Lee gets top position against Antonina Shevchenko, she's so good in the scrambles and so good at reversing position and getting up to a hip and getting into a sprawl, spinning to take the back, working from a half guard, trying to get sweeps from the half guard. She's so good at, getting positions from on top and maintaining positions. And if she gets, reversed, she can move off her hips and everything like that. She's so good at that and so calm in terms of being on top, a lot better than she used to be. She has improved her defensive grappling and offensive grappling a lot more in her most recent fights. And I think that's where she would take over in terms of this fight. And on the feet, I think it's close. But I do think Antonina, again, just has an advantage. She's more calm when it comes to being on the feet. She's not as active as Andrea Lee, which could be a problem because if you get behind and Andrea Lee's able to just land hooks and the left hook, the right hand, the double jab, left hook, right low kick, 1-2 step off, low kick, front kick. If she's able to just land these strikes and get the number count up and get the strike count up and run away with the rounds, that could be a problem for Antonina, and that could mean she has to rely a little bit more on her wrestling and her clinch game, which is something I think we're going to see either way. I think that both of these girls can get takedowns. I think that Andrea Lee, again, like I said, in the clinch, head-to-head, where the head goes, the body follows, drag her down with head-to-head and pull it down and, use that to get top position. I think that is a way that Andrea Lee can get takedowns against Shevchenko, but Shevchenko is so good in the clinch and she's so good at the over-under position and working from there and rotating off the fence and turning her into her foot to then foot sweep out to get in top position and drag her back one way in the over-under and use it as a foot sweep to drag you and take your momentum. I think that is something that we're definitely going to see from Shevchenko. But overall, in terms of this fight, I'm going to go with Antonina Shevchenko. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think this could be one of your fights of the night because I think we're going to see a lot of exchanges on the feet in the striking and the kickboxing. I think Andrea Lee is going to land that left hook a lot. I think since it's opposite stances with Antonina, I think we're going to see a lot of trying to get that outside foot, land the right hook, left body kick, right hook, left front kick, right hook, double jab, front kick, and then landing low kicks. I think we're going to see a lot of that. But I do think some of Andrea Lee's kicks are going to get caught, and then it's going to lead to trips and working from the half guard on top for Antonina Shevchenko. My pick for this fight is going to be Antonina La Pantera Shevchenko to get the victory via a unanimous decision. I think she goes 2 rounds to 1, 29-28. I think Antonina might lose the first round and, get behind a little bit, but then come back and bank the next 2 rounds with her grappling and her ability to control in the clinch and then just being more patient and landing the better shots at range. So Antonina Shevchenko to get the victory via a unanimous decision. All right. Up next in the flyweight division, you've got a battle between top 10 ranked flyweights. The number 8 ranked Matt Danger Schnell coming into this fight with a record of 15 victories and 5 defeats, going up against the number 9 ranked Rogerio Bontorin, who's coming into this fight with a record of 16 victories, 3 defeats, and 1 no contest. Although the records are pretty close, and you can say that Bontorin has the better record, which he does, he hasn't gotten a victory in the UFC. I don't believe. He lost to Ray Borg, and then he lost to Icar France, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. We're going to check this out right here. So his last fight, he got knocked out by Kaikar France right at the end of the first round. It was a beautiful right uppercut, overhand right, and dropped him and got the finish, walk-off KO. And then he lost his UFC debut via decision to Ray Borg. So Ray Borg and Kaikar France, those aren't the worst people to lose to. If you're going to lose to anybody at flyweight, you want to lose to the top guys. One thing we do know about Rogerio Bontorin is that he has very, very good grappling, good ability to get into, good ability to find a way to take the back. And I think that can be definitely a weapon for him against a guy like Matt Schnell. Now, Matt Schnell, you look at his last few fights, he's on a little bit of a roll. He lost to Alexandre Pantoja, but then he came back, and I believe he's on a win streak. Let me see. So he beat Tyson Nam via decision, and then prior to that, that might have been when he lost to Pantoja. Yeah, okay. So he lost to Pantoja. Before that, he beat Jordan Espinoza via submission, which was a phenomenal submission. He had an arm-in guillotine, and he switched the lock, changed hands, controlled the head, and used that to set up a triangle choke, turned the corner to cut off any additional space in between the thigh and the carotid arteries on the neck, hooked the leg, and got the submission victory. I believe he might have even switched it to an arm bar. So, his ability to chain submission attempts together, make him the striker that he is. And Matt Schnell makes him the grappler that he is. But that also has allowed him to become a way better striker because his striking has gotten a lot better. His ability to use head movement to get away from a lot of the wide shots of the opponent is definitely something we're going to have to look out for. When it comes to straight punches, I would give that advantage a little bit to Rogerio Bontorin. When it comes to hooks and uppercuts and putting them in combination, that goes to Matt Schnell all day. All day. It's all day with that. The uppercuts and the hooks and the combinations, moving away. The one thing that Matt Schnell's very good at is his eyes, man. He's able to see everything that the opponent throws. He's always got his eyes on the opponent. He's always staying calm and staying patient and finding a way to land his combinations against his opponent like he did against Tyson Nam. He knew that Tyson Nam primarily could only look to set up the right hand. He was looking to set up the 1-2 because that was the best combination that Tyson Nam could throw. was the 1-2 down the middle, the pop-pop, or a hook 2, but he wasn't able to land it because Schnell would constantly be moving. He'd fake, he'd slip the jab, and then, or he'd pull away from the jab, he'd slip, then pull, and then he'd roll underneath so that he was avoiding the left, even if it was just a feint. He would avoid the lead hand with the slip. He'd pull back away just in case they wanted to come in with a double jab or a hook. And then as they threw the right hand, he would roll underneath. So it's just, he's constantly moving his head. He's faking the right hand. He's moving forward. He's faking the right hand to make you think he's a little bit closer and see what your defense is going to be. He can draw the counter out and pull, slip, and roll underneath. He's very good with using his head movement, his upper trunk movement to see the shots coming and then come back in with the counter. That's something that Matt Schnell is very, very good at. And like I said, his combination punches, he's very, very quick. It's not the cleanest shots that he lands, but the uppercuts and the hooks and the uppercuts, countering the jab with the right hand, boom, 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 and then moving around, his head movement along with those long combinations is going to give Rogerio Bontorin a lot of problems. The speed is a huge advantage here for Matt Schnell. Now, if by some miracle Matt Schnell overcommits on a shot, Bontorin can shoot a double, go to a body lock, spin to the back, get his hooks in, and work from the back. That's going to be a problem. But we said Matt Schnell's jiu-jitsu is very, very good, and that's where he made his career early on, was his jiu-jitsu, changing from an arm in guillotine to a, triangle, cutting the angle. He's got a very, very good triangle, and he's so quick at setting it up, cutting the angle, hooking the leg, and getting that submission. If he locks it in, it could be over in like 10, 15 seconds. You don't have to be in the submission long against a guy like Matt Danger Schnell. He's got multiple reasons they call him Danger now. And, at first it was just the grappling. Now it's the striking. He's becoming a complete mixed martial artist. And I think he runs away with this fight. I think there is an opportunity for Bontorin to win this fight, and he's going to have to get Matt Schnell a little bit overconfident, put his hands down, kind of play the game a little bit, get him to overcommit on a straight punch or a hook, duck underneath, and then work for the submissions. But the scrambling ability and the jiu-jitsu ability of Matt Schnell in and of himself can give Bontorin a lot of problems. So I'm going to go with Matt Schnell to get the victory. I think this is actually a fight where he gets his first TKO finish. So I'm going to go with a third round TKO. I think he lands a quick combination with the uppercuts and the hooks because he does have power, drops Bontorin, jumps on top of him, and gets the finish. So my pick is Matt Danger Schnell to defeat Rogerio Bontorin via a third round TKO. All right, now we move to the main card. Up first in the featherweight division, you've got a battle between the top 15 ranked contenders. The number 9 ranked Hurricane Shane Burgos coming into this fight after a loss to Josh Emmett in a brutal fight, probably one of your fights of the year, without a doubt. A really solid, just back and forth war. Nobody wanted to quit. Burgos getting dropped with an overhand left, with a straight right, with a straight left, he was getting dropped because of the speed of Josh Emmett and the power that he possesses. And then, prior to that, he had a really good win against Makwan Amirkhani, where he was just able to outlast the grappling exchanges of Amirkhani and push him back, work the body with that beautiful right uppercut to the body that he likes to land, which is also a good weapon from Barbosa, the right uppercut to the body. And he gets off on a brief angle to the outside foot. Boom, lands the right hook, cuts an angle off to the other side. Boom, lands the hook to the body. Uppercut, hook, 1, 2, pull back, 2, 3. Hook to the body, hook to the head. Burgos has really good boxing, but a problem for him is he keeps his hands really low. He kind of likes to rely on the shoulder roll, the Philly shell style of defense, which is primarily works for boxing, but it's harder to move that over into the mixed martial arts game. Cover, slip, cover, catch, roll. A lot of that stuff, that's going to be it's hard for people to pull off in the UFC, but some people can do it. Burgos is good at it, but it kind of bit him in the ass against Josh Emmett. And when you look at Edson Barbosa, he's coming into this fight with a very razor-thin decision loss to Dan Ige. Dan 50K Ige, he dropped Ige multiple times. Ige didn't drop him, but he was able to use his strength and wrestling to win that third round. I still to this day believe that Barbosa beat Ige in that fight. Hurt him to the body with a switch kick to the body, and then dropped him with the combination. He landed a boom, boom, elbow over the top, and then another elbow, and dropped him. And, he was able to stop a lot of the takedowns. Barbosa is so good with his hips, stopping takedowns and just sniffing out your takedown attempts, stopping it and getting back up to the feet. It's something that he's very, very good at. And that's why I don't think this is going to be as easy of a fight for Shane Burgos as I think a lot of people are predicting. I love Burgos. I think he's great. I think he can be a champion if he, upgrades his defense a little bit and keeps his hands up a little bit more and uses the shoulder roll. If you can use a high guard and then switch between shoulder roll and catching the shots in a high guard and using head movement, I think that it can be a good sense of defense for the mixed martial arts game at the highest level. But if you only use the shoulder roll and you're getting caught over the top with guys who have a lot of power and getting caught because they're a lot faster than you, that can be a problem. The speed and power of Josh Emmett is what led him to lose the fight. And it doesn't mean that Burgos can't take a punch. That guy can take a shot. But I think that the Emmett fight took a little bit out of the chin of Shane Burgos. I think it took a little bit out of him. And, he got dropped multiple times. He did come back and probably won the third round, but Emmett also fought that fight on a busted ACL. He tore his ACL in the first round, like the first exchange, and he still was able to switch stance, land the overhands, and get some good shots going. With Edson Barbosa, he's very quick. He's moving down to 145, or he moved down to 145, like I said, came in against Ige, lost that fight via razor-thin decision, and then came in and kind of beat the shit out of Makwan Amirkhani, dropped him with that, no-tell, boom, pot shot right hand. He dropped him, and then he did it again later in the round. Boom, dropped him with the pot shot. Very good left hook to the body and getting off on the angle and landing the right uppercut to the body. Both of these guys are very good with their body work. They're very good with their defense, but I think Edson is just better in terms of defense. He keeps a high guard. He does use head movement. Thing is, Barbosa does have problems with pressure fighters, guys who can push him back to the cage, not wilt to his, speed and power and his explosiveness and just push through it and push him back and work him and get him tired. That is a problem for him. And it has been a problem against Justin Gaethje. It was a problem against Beneil Dariush before he got the knockout, just pushing him back and trying to catch him. And then he was able to land him. The pressure of Khabib with the wrestling and the grappling, he just kind of wilted to the pressure. It's a problem for him, and I think it can definitely be a problem against Burgos because Burgos is that pressure style of fighter, keeping his hands low, pressuring, right hand, left hook, double jab, right hand, slip, hook, right hook, hook to the body, boom, 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 hook, uppercut to the body. He does have good ability to land those punches. And when he gets his swagger going like he did against Amirkhani in that late second, early third round, keeping the hands down, right hand, right high kick, boom, 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 landing the right hand. He's so good at getting a brief angle and landing the overhand right. Just boom, boom, landing the right hand. That can be a problem for Barbosa later in the fight. But I'm afraid for the chin of Shane Burgos, man. He took a lot of damage against Josh Emmett. Emmett's very quick. He's very fast. He's very explosive. So is Edson Barbosa. The thing about this fight, Josh Emmett isn't much of a kicker at all. Edson Barbosa is one of the best kickers in all of mixed martial arts. To the legs, switch kicks to the body, kicks to the head, spinning kicks, low kicks. I think the kicks of Barbosa are going to chew up Shane Burgos. I think it's going to make it a lot harder for him to close the range and get into the boxing range where he wants to be. If it stays at kicking range, Barbosa chews him up and probably gets a finish. It's not easy to finish Shane Burgos. You saw that in the Emmett fight. I also think that he gets hit with left hands a lot, does Shane Burgos. He got hit with the overhand left from Josh Emmett. He got hit with a straight left from Makwan Amirkhani a few times in their fight because of just his chin being exposed and his hands being low. The straight left always seems to be an issue. With Barbosa, he's going to use that pot shot right hand, just the no-tell lean forward a little bit to make him think You want to just avoid their shots and then boom, step in with the straight right down the center. He's going to use that against Burgos, and I think it's going to be a problem. I think we're going to see him use that switch to southpaw, boom, land the straight left down the middle. I think that the kicks, the switch kicks to the body, the front kicks, the knees, the round kicks to the low kicks, boom, boom, 1, 2, 3, low kick, the Dutchie combo, 1, 2, hook to the body, low kick. I think that's going to be a problem for Burgos. I think in the third round, Burgos can take over and might be able to eke out a decision, but I think the power and the explosiveness and most importantly, the speed of Barbosa with his kicks and his punches at 145, I think he has a better gas tank than 55, which is kind of crazy. But I think that the gas tank of Barbosa and just the speed and power is going to be too much for Burgos. I think he's going to leave his chin out there a little too much. I think he's going to get cracked with a combination, chopped up with the kicks to the body, and hurt with the body shots a lot. That right uppercut to the body, brief angle change right uppercut that Burgos likes to use as well. They're very similar in some of the techniques they like to use while also being very different at the same time in terms of their overall game. But I'm going with Edson Barbosa to defeat Shane Burgos here. It's a close fight, but I think Barbosa's speed and his explosiveness with the kicking game going into the boxing, chaining the boxing and the kickboxing together is going to hurt Shane Burgos. He's going to leave himself open, get a little cocky, get hurt, and probably get finished. This is the first fight. He got finished by Kelvin Kattar with the boxing. I think he gets finished with the body work and the punching speed of Barbosa. I think the kicks to the body leading to the hands working up top for Barbosa. He gets hurt, gets dropped, and gets finished. I'm going to go with Edson Jr. Barbosa to defeat Hurricane Shane Burgos via I'm going to go with the third round. No, I'm going to go with the second round TKO. I think that like I said, the speed and the power of Barbosa. Speed and power was an issue for him against Emmett. I think Emmett hits harder in terms of the punching, but I think Barbosa kicks way harder, and kicks are going to lead to more damage than punches. He's faster than Shane Burgos, and it's going to just not allow him to take as much damage as he did in the fight against Emmett. So Edson Barbosa to defeat Shane Burgos via a second round TKO. All right, now we move to the co-main event of the evening. In the lightweight division, you've got a battle between top 10 ranked contenders. First up, the former interim lightweight champion, the boogeyman, El Cucuy, Tony Ferguson, who's ranked number 5 in the division, coming in after a 2-fight losing streak. Prior to that 2-fight losing streak, he was on a 12-fight win streak. He came in, ran into Justin Gaethje at UFC 249. Had some good moments in the fight, was able to drop Gaethje with an uppercut, but really just got outclassed in terms of the striking and the footwork and the angles that Gaethje was able to use on Ferguson. He exposed his defensive irresponsibility and his ability to want to just wane forward and get into war. And then against Charles Do Bronx Oliveira, he just got outstruck and outgrappled. Out-wrestled, constantly just getting taken down with double legs up against the cage, controlled from side control, then opening up the hips, leaning back into a reverse scarf position to then step back over into the mount and getting mounted by Charles Oliveira, getting put in a arm bar at the end of the first round that almost broke his arm, snapped it completely off, but the bell saved him. And then again, later on in the fight, I believe in the second or third round, getting put in a, switching from omoplata to a triangle choke, turning the corner, almost getting the triangle, but then getting out of that. I believe Charles Oliveira might have switched to a armbar. Either way, just out-grappled, losing every round, outstruck on the feet, landing an uppercut to a straight right hand for Charles Oliveira. That worked pretty well. And this is kind of a must-win for Tony Ferguson. Ferguson is in a spot I think a lot of people didn't ever see coming. I don't think anyone really ever expected to see Ferguson on a 2-fight win streak. But the thing with a guy like Tony Ferguson, and this is no disrespect to him because he's one of the best lightweights of all time, one of the best fighters of all time, always looking for a finish, always looking to cut you up with elbows, take you to snap down city, look for a Darce choke. You know, he eventually was going to have the damage that he was able to take in other fights catch up to him. And that's what happened, what's happening in his career right now. He took way too much damage in the fight against Justin Gaethje. Should have not gotten knocked out multiple times in that fight, but just stuck through it and was able to take the damage and continue to move forward and try to win the fight. And then in the fight against Charles Oliveira, he was a little bit gun shy. He didn't keep his hands up much. His defense wasn't really there, but he just wasn't really there at all. Like, he might have landed a few good shots. He was able to scramble out of a couple positions on the ground against Charles Oliveira. But then even when he scrambled out, he just got thrown right back down to the ground. Double legs, single legs, body locks, just constantly getting taken down over and over again, controlled from the side control, the half guard, controlled from the mount, almost getting submitted, just kind of getting thrown around like a rag doll. And this is a must-win for Tony Ferguson. If you come into this fight and lose against Beneil Dariush, who is not an easy fight whatsoever, he's kind of like a newer version of what Tony Ferguson used to be, if that makes any sense. I do think Ferguson's a shell of himself. I do think he's a little bit gun-shy to take the damage. Now, one thing is Tony Ferguson has been working with Freddie Roach ahead of this fight, so his boxing and his defense should be a little bit better. I hope he comes into this fight a little bit more defensively responsible. Beneil Dariush is on a crazy win streak. I believe it's 7 in a row, 6 or 7 in a row for Beneil Dariush. Let's see. He is currently riding a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's riding a 6-fight win streak right now, with wins over Thiago Moises, Frank Camacho, Drew Dober, Scott Holtzman, Drakkar Klose, and Diego Ferreira. That's kind of a murderer's row. I mean, you've got Drew Dober in there. You've got Carlos Diego Ferreira. You've got Drakkar Klose, who was at one time a very, very talented prospect. He's still very talented. Was supposed to fight Jeremy Stevens before the whole pushing fiasco went down. Beating Frank Camacho, that's not necessarily the best win that you could have. Beating Thiago Moises. Moises is a really good fighter. He's a great fighter. Beneil Dariush is, like I said, kind of a newer version of what Tony Ferguson used to be. Come forward, land vicious power shots. His striking is very powerful. His left body kick has so much power in it. He landed a lot against Scott Holtzman. He does keep his hands down really low and tries to rely on head movement, as does Tony Ferguson, but Ferguson's head movement is non-existent. He just tries to rely on the range a little bit more. This fight is another one that I think Tony Ferguson gets. I think this is the first time we get to see Tony Ferguson get finished. I think that the ability of and the willingness of Beneil Dariush to come forward and get into a brawl, land right hook, straight left body kick, left high kick, attack inside and outside low kicks, land the double jab from the power side to step over into the overhand right, switch back to southpaw, land the overhand left. It's going to be a problem. And if he gets hurt, he still finds a way to try to land a power shot and to slip your punches when he's hurt. Ferguson does that too. When he gets hurt, he's been able to come back and find a way to get into a scramble on the ground and lock up a leg lock or roll for an Imanari and then eventually try to get up to the feet and drag you into snap down city to lock up the Darce choke and get a submission. If Beneil Dariush wasn't a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and trained in the striking with Rafael Cordeiro, I would probably give Tony Ferguson a little bit more of a chance in this fight. But Ferguson's on a downward spiral in his career. I don't want to fully write him off yet, but I don't think Ferguson wins another fight in the UFC. I think that he loses this fight as well. And people are going to say, well, he can lock up a Darce choke. He can find a way to get into a scramble and, find a way to lock up a submission. He got out-grappled by Charles Oliveira, which, granted, he's probably one of the best grapplers in all of mixed martial arts now that Khabib's gone. He might be the best grappler all the way around. Him and Gregor Gillespie and Islam Makhachev are at the top of the list. Makhachev, Gillespie, and I don't know, whoever I just said, Beneil Dariush. There's some really good grapplers in the UFC. But, Oliveira, Gillespie, and Makhachev are the top of the list when it comes to the grappling in MMA. They're the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop. And the cream of the crop always rises to the top. And, the black belt and the scrambles that he was able to land on Diego Ferreira and being able to get top position. He did get hurt on the feet. Beneil does have a tendency to get hurt by straight punches that are very powerful, straight rights, usually countering kicks to the body. So, like we said, Ferguson has been working with Freddie Roach. He might be able to land some good punches on the feet. He might be better defensively and better with the footwork and the movement. He might be able to slip some punches a little bit more, keep his hands up high. But your hands up high against Beneil, he's going to go to the body and land the body kick. If you get into a scramble, I think Beneil Dariush can nullify the jiu-jitsu of Tony Ferguson by using his wrestling and using his power and his heavy top control. The left power body kick, the left high kicks, the straight left hands and the right hooks. I think the power of Beneil is going to be a little bit too much for Tony Ferguson at this point in his career. I think that Ferguson can win this fight if he finds a way to hurt Beneil in the middle of an exchange and then goes to lock up a Darce choke. I think he can get the win there, but I think if he winds up on his back, I think the scrambling ability and the wrestling ability and the defensive jiu-jitsu of Beneil is going to nullify a lot of the grappling game of Tony Ferguson. I think on the feet, the power and the switch stances, and which he had trouble with against Gaethje. He wasn't ready for the switch stance combinations. I think we're going to see Beneil use that a lot. Double jab, switch to orthodox to land the overhand right, go back to southpaw right hook, straight left, right hook to the body, 1, 1, 2, 3. I think we're going to see that the power of Beneil is too much for Ferguson, and I think this is the first fight where Ferguson gets finished, like actually finished, like TKO'd. My pick for this fight is Beneil Dariush to defeat Tony Ferguson via a, I want to say third round TKO. I think it'll go long, but I think the power, the defensive jiu-jitsu and the wrestling and the top control, I think he's going to TKO Tony Ferguson. I think he catches him on the feet. His chin is just taking too much damage. Ferguson is not the same guy he used to be. It pains me to say it because at one point he was one of my favorite fighters. He is still one of my favorite fighters to watch. And he was at one point the interim lightweight champion and one of the best guys in the world. But those times have passed, and I just don't see him winning another fight in the UFC. And yeah, so Beneil Dariush to defeat Tony El Cucuy Ferguson via a second round TKO on the ground with ground and pound, or dropping him on the feet and TKOing him. All right, and now we move to the main event of the evening for the vacant UFC lightweight championship. The first champion to be crowned after the retirement of Habib the Eagle Nurmagomedov. You've got a battle between two of the best guys in the lightweight division if your name is not Dustin the Diamond Poirier. The number 3 ranked Charles Do Bronx Oliveira going up against the UFC newcomer who made his UFC debut at UFC 257 by knocking out Dan Hooker in the first round. That is Iron Michael Chandler, who's ranked number 4 in the lightweight division, former multiple-time Bellator lightweight champion, holding wins over guys like Smooth Benson Henderson, Eddie Alvarez, Dave Rickles, Patricio Pitbull. I think it's Patricio. It might be Patricky. Pitbull via knockouts. Just long-time reigning, defending Bellator champion, holding down the reins in that promotion. And now he made his way over to the UFC and made a statement with a brutal switch stance right to the body, left hook, first round knockout over Dan the Hangman Hooker, which was one of the toughest fights he could have gotten in that division for a debut. And that was probably the toughest fight he could have gotten for a debut in the UFC. And he came through with flying colors. There was a little bit of an issue for him with the calf kick of Dan Hooker, but he was able to just push forward, push through it. He knew that Hooker was going to move into his left hook, because as Hooker gets backed up, he tends to move towards one side up against the cage and keep his hands down really low. If he was able to get past those calf kicks and front kicks to the body, he was able to land a front kick to the body of Dan Hooker, land a hook 2, a 1-2, front kick, a push kick, pushing Hooker back, and then step through right to the body, switch stance, boom, left hook, dropped Dan Hooker, jumped on him, and got the first round TKO. Now he comes into this fight. In a second fight in the UFC, he has the opportunity to become the king of the lightweight division. But he's going up against a guy in Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira, who's on an 8-fight win streak. I believe it's 9-fight win streak now. I might be wrong. Let's see. He is on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's on an 8-fight win streak. His last loss coming to Paul Felder via ground and pound elbow TKO at UFC 218. So he hasn't lost since 2017, and he's coming in almost 4 years unbeaten, again, finally getting a crack at the lightweight championship. He holds a record of 30 victories and 8 defeats and 1 no contest. I thought it was 29-8. Maybe the Google is wrong here, but he is coming into this fight against a brutal knockout artist, a phenomenal wrestler, and I mean, just one of the toughest matchups possible for Charles Oliveira to go for his first title shot. This is the toughest fight he could have, one of the toughest fights he could have in his career. And, you know, we'll look at a little bit of the stats. We'll break those down really quick for you. When you look at the stats for this fight, 29, it says 30-8, but on the UFC website, it says 29-8. So either way, 29-8 and 1 no contest going up against Michael Chandler, who's 21-5. Well, it says 22-5. See, like they can never get the records right. 22-5. Okay, so Michael Chandler is 22-5 overall in professional mixed martial arts. Charles Oliveira, 29-8-1 no contest. You look at, they're both coming off wins. Obviously, Charles Oliveira is on a long win streak, as is Michael Chandler, but not in the UFC. 5'10 to 5'8, so a 2-inch height advantage for Charles Oliveira. He's going to want to use that and use that kicking game and stay at long range against a guy like Michael Chandler. When he comes to reach, he's got a 2.5-inch reach advantage over Michael Chandler. 74-inch reach for Charles Oliveira, 71.5-inch reach for Michael Chandler. When it comes to leg reach, he's got a 3.5-inch reach advantage there as well. 41-inch leg reach for Charles Oliveira to 37.5-inch leg reach for Iron Michael Chandler. When it comes to win percentages, wins by way of knockout, 27% of wins come by way of KO for Charles Oliveira to 45% for Chandler. 63% of his wins coming by way of submission for Oliveira to 32% of the wins coming by way of submission for Chandler. 10% of the wins coming by way of decision for Oliveira to 23% of the wins coming by way of decision for Chandler. So when it comes to who's more of a finisher overall, that would be Charles Oliveira. When it comes to who's more of a knockout artist, that goes to Michael Chandler. So I hope you guys, can understand what I mean by that. Yes, Charles Oliveira has a higher finishing rate, but Michael Chandler has a higher knockout rate. And I think that's going to play a big factor in this fight when we get into the intangibles and the true breakdown. When it comes to average fight time, pretty close. 6 minutes and 57 seconds for Charles Oliveira, 6 minutes and 38 seconds for Michael Chandler. Knockdown averages per 15-minute fight, 0.32 for Charles Oliveira to a 0.95 for Michael Chandler. Strikes landed per minute, 3.22 for Oliveira to 4.29 for Chandler. Significant strike percentages, neck and neck. 52% of significant strikes land for Oliveira to 49% for Iron Michael Chandler. Absorbed per minute, Charles Oliveira is a little bit better defensively, 2.94 strikes absorbed per minute to 3.76 strikes absorbed per minute for Chandler, 54% striking defense overall for Oliveira to a 52% striking defense for Michael Chandler. Grappling, this is where it can get really interesting. The scrambles, the top control, the submission attempts. Michael Chandler has never been submitted in 27 fights. He's never been submitted. That's going to get tested in this fight against Oliveira. 2.64 takedowns per 15-minute fight for Oliveira to 2.37 for Michael Chandler. 44% takedown accuracy rate for Oliveira. 41% takedown accuracy for Michael Chandler. Takedown defense, 57% of takedowns defended for Oliveira to 80% takedown defense for Chandler. So even though Oliveira is more accurate with the takedowns, Michael Chandler is way better in terms of takedown defense. And I think that the takedown defense of Oliveira is definitely getting tested in this fight. 2.8 submission average for Oliveira per 15-minute fight to a 1.42 submission average for Michael Chandler. So Oliveira is going to be more active. He's going to be looking for submissions, hunting for submissions. If Chandler shoots a head on the outside single, look for Oliveira to try to grab the neck and lock up the guillotine before he even fully commits to the single leg, head on the outside single. If it goes head on the inside, look for Oliveira to scoop, pull the head out, pull his hips out, get the hips back in, lock up the choke, and try to jump either into a half guard or jump into a full guard to get the guillotine choke. But as we said, in 27 fights, Michael Chandler's never been submitted. When it comes to how I see this fight playing out, Charles Oliveira has never really done well when somebody can push you back, pressure you, and get you on the back foot. He did look good in his fight against Tony Ferguson, even though he pushed forward a lot in that fight. He looked good on the back foot against Kevin Lee. Even though he did get hurt at some points, he was really good at landing that uppercut to the straight right hand or straight right hand to a right uppercut. I think he's going to be looking for uppercuts a lot against Chandler just because of the wrestling and the level changes that Michael Chandler likes to use. Since he's such a good explosive wrestler and so good in the scrambles and chaining takedown attempts together and scrambling out of your takedown attempt to shoot back in on a head on the outside double leg and elevate you and go head on the inside single and trip you out, back to double, take you down, body lock, trip takedown, suplexes. He's very good at getting the body lock, shooting his hips in, pushing his hips forward, elevating, and boom, landing a suplex takedown. He's very, very good at that. The power of Michael Chandler is going to be a big problem for Charles Oliveira. I do think Oliveira can win on the feet, but it's like a 90-10 for me. No, you know what? I'll give Oliveira a little bit more respect than that. 75-25. If the fight ends via knockout on the feet, it's because Michael Chandler knocked Charles Oliveira out cold. And we've seen him get knocked out by Cub Swanson with the right hand. We saw him have a lot of trouble with the right hand of Kevin Lee. He has gotten hurt by right hands a lot in his career. Like I said, Cub Swanson, Kevin Lee hurt him with the right hand a few times. Kevin Lee was able to take him down, just overpower him and take him down. But the scrambling ability of Charles Oliveira, and even when he gets taken down, going for a leg lock, going for switching the leg lock, or going for a calf slicer, switching it into a leg lock, switching the leg lock into a triangle, switching the triangle into an omoplata. Omoplata, when he defends that, back to the triangle, back to the armbar, using it to constantly be moving and moving around. However, the wrestling of Michael Chandler is next level. Now that he's in the UFC, he's the best wrestler at 155 pounds, bar none. The best jiu-jitsu artist is definitely Charles Oliveira. The best wrestler is Michael Chandler. And I think the wrestling is going to nullify the submission attempts of Charles Oliveira because of how strong, powerful, and explosive Michael Chandler is, how heavy he can be on the top position. If anybody gets submission in this fight, I think that Michael Chandler can submit Charles Oliveira with an arm triangle choke. I think it can happen. I think he can get an arm triangle. From that top position, working in the half guard, landing ground and pound, being able to pass over, get into the arm triangle position, and get the submission. He's powerful. He's strong. He's very explosiveness. He's got a huge back and big shoulders and a lot of power. And Charles Oliveira, don't think he's never got submitted. He got submitted by Anthony Pettis. Pettis caught him in a guillotine and submitted him. Now, yes, Pettis is a way better jiu-jitsu artist than people give him credit for. Yes, he has submitted Benson Henderson. He submitted Charles Oliveira. He submitted some very, very good guys. It's happened. He can submit you. He submitted Oliveira. If Oliveira gets caught on the bottom and gets put in an arm triangle choke, I think he's going to get submitted. But that's not how I'm picking the person who I want to win this fight, or the person who I think is going to win, I should say. If Oliveira wants to win, he's got to keep him at kicking range. Keep Michael Chandler from being able to pressure you, land front kicks up the middle, jumping front kicks to the head, land low kicks, front kicks to the knee, calf kicks, and jabs. The 1-2 of Charles Oliveira, the front push kick to the body, and the front push kick to the knee is going to be your weapon to keep Michael Chandler away from you, along with the calf kicks. We've seen Chandler have problems with calf kicks against Brent Primus when he lost because he got that drop foot and he couldn't continue. In Bellator, he came back and beat him, obviously, really handedly. And then, obviously, we saw him have trouble with a calf kick against Dan Hooker. He only landed one good one, but it caused Chandler to kind of hop it off and kind of walk it off a little bit. Michael Chandler is going to push Charles Oliveira back. He's going to use those level change fakes to get Charles Oliveira to try to either get his neck or try to back up a little bit and try to stop the takedown. He's going to land the 1-2 to the body. He's going to use some fakes and feints, try to land the 1-2 up top, try to land the hook 2 down the middle up top. He's going to push Charles Oliveira back, and he's going to make him quit, but he's going to knock him out cold. The pressure of Michael Chandler is not going to allow Oliveira to push Chandler back. If he does push Chandler back, expect Chandler to try to land a 1-2 down the middle. He's got some of the fastest hands in all of mixed martial arts. He might have the fastest 1-2 in the history of mixed martial arts. That 1-2 he landed on Patricio Pitbull, boom, boom, 1-2 down the middle, knockout cold. He landed a 1-2 on Sydney Outlaw, boom, boom, landed it, knocked him out cold. Landed a 1-2 on Benson Henderson, I believe, and actually, no, he landed a right body kick, switched to southpaw, and landed the straight left hand as he stance switched on an angle, dropped him, and got a TK over Benson Henderson as well. He's good with the kicks. He's good with the stance switches under Henry Hooft. He's good with the fakes and feints and landing the 1-2. He's just a short, stocky, powerful wrestler with knockout power. And that is a big, big problem for Charles Oliveira. Huge, huge issue. He reminds me of a more dangerous version and a more advanced version of Chad Mendes. That's how I see Michael Chandler, but he's just next level. Let me see. I believe Charles Oliveira fought Chad Mendes, but I'm not sure. Did that ever happen? No, it doesn't look like. Yeah, no, it didn't happen. Okay, well, if Charles Oliveira would have fought Chad Mendes, I expect this fight to go that same way. Since Chandler's never been submitted in 27 fights, and the wrestling and the top pressure is going to negate a lot of the scrambling and submission attempts that Oliveira uses, it's going to tire him out. He's going to get grounded and pounded on the feet. He's going to be a little bit hesitant to throw his combinations. Even though Oliveira's striking has become leaps and bounds better than it ever has in his mixed martial arts career, it's still not enough to beat Iron Michael Chandler. I think it starts off early. I think Oliveira tries to use fakes and feints and land front kicks to the body, land low kicks early on, land the jab, try to land the 1-2. Chandler has gotten hurt, has gotten dropped, has gotten finished, but I don't think Oliveira has the power to do that. I think he's going to finally just figure out the game of Oliveira, stop a couple takedown attempts, and eventually in the second round, he's going to find the opening, he's going to push him up against the cage, and he's going to land a bomb. He's going to land the boom, boom, 1-2 down the middle, drop Oliveira, jump on him, and get a knockout victory or a TKO. So my pick for this fight is Iron Michael Chandler to defeat Charles Do Bronx Oliveira via second round TKO and become the new UFC lightweight champion. All right, guys, that's it for this prediction, breakdown, and podcast and recap of the UFC Fight Night Prohaska versus Reyes, UFC 262 predictions. We're going to be starting more wrestling on this podcast. That includes Ruthless Aggression pay-per-view reviews and show reviews. We're going to start off with Backlash 2002 coming this week. We're going to review every pay-per-view from 2002 to 2006 or 2007. We'll review things like CDs that came out during the Ruthless Aggression era. Toy lines, if you want us to talk about actual Ruthless Aggression wrestling action figures. You want us to talk about the SmackDown and Raw magazines. We'll have more UFC predictions coming out. Probably going to try to get some more fighter interviews if I can. Please make sure to listen to this podcast anywhere audio podcasts are distributed. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and many more. Please leave a review for this podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can find me on YouTube at Touch 'em Up Podcast, TOUCH_EMUPPODCAST, and find my fighter breakdowns on Peter Yan, the Aljamain Sterling Corey Sandhagen fight, Corey Sandhagen breakdowns, a lot of breakdowns on some of the best fighters, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. My most recent one is on Vicente